let's rank some palettes, you guys. I have around 20 palettes. I started doing this video last year at the beginning of the end of the previous quarter. Here I am in business land. That's how my mind works. Quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, you guys get it. So I had around 20 and I thought this was perfect. Plus it's the beginning of April, so quarter one is closed, but I'm really excited to do this particular video today because I have been getting into so many more new indie brands. So I'm really excited to talk about these indie brands. I've got Menagerie, I've got Give Me Glow Cosmetics, I've got Odin's Eye, I've got some brands that you probably haven't heard of before, a brand new indie brand, and I have some mainstream palettes that I have been testing for Q1. So you guys, I'm gonna start this off with the worst palette that I tried all the way up to the favorite palette that I tried for last quarter. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you're not currently subscribed, I'd love to see you subscribe. Let's get into the ranking. So coming in the last place was a disappointment for me. This was the Evanescence collaboration with Hip Dot. I thought I was going to love this. I also picked up the one that they did with Korn. The quality here is just not good. I ranked the Korn one way earlier because it was a much more neutral color story, so I tried it a lot faster, but they perform very similarly. This one even might be worse in terms of quality. Ideally, this would be a beautiful blue, darkish color story, but the mattes here are extremely patchy. They overblend, and the shimmers are extremely dry. They're not light reflecting at all. They're just very, very dry. It's got one pressed glitter in here that I won't use. Overall, the quality was just disappointing in every single aspect. Mattes, depth of the mattes, and the shimmer quality. I don't think I'm a fan of the Hip Dot formula, I think is kind of what it comes down to. Now having tested two of their palettes, and something like an Evanescence collaboration, you'd think that they'd use their best quality. This absolutely wasn't it. Nothing wrong with the color story. I really do enjoy light to dark, the blue, the gradient of blue. It was missing everything except the color story. I will be passing this along. This is not going to be a blue palette that's gonna work in my collection. Even the black shade in here overblends like crazy. I'm gonna stop and say I don't know if you can get all of these palettes anymore. That was limited edition, I'm pretty sure, on its release, and it went out of stock really quickly. I know that they did restock it, and I think that's when I picked it up, was the restock, but I don't know if it's still in stock. I will be linking everything in the description box in case you guys are interested. Let's move on to number 19. So coming in next is another collaboration palette. This was the collaboration with Twilight from ColourPop. Again, ideally a pretty nice grungy bluish green color story. The packaging is really cute, but 4 of my matte shades came hard pan. This shade over here, I was immediately scraping it when I filmed the video testing this palette. And then playing with some of the other shades, they're already hard pan. This green one and these 2 over here, the shimmers in this palette are just not their good quality either. They're not light reflecting. Some of these are just super piecey with no base at all. They do better shimmers than this in a lot of their palettes. This blue one that I tried to use is so dry. The quality of this overall is so bad. And this is another one that I'm gonna pass along. I think the whole collection from the Twilight collaboration was just bad. None of the quality in anything that I received was any good at all. It's not worth a darn, in my opinion. I know these sell out really quickly and some people have enjoyed their collection, or at least this palette. Could just be that mine came hard panned and they're not all like this, or even that the shimmers are a little bit drier and they're not all the same. Could totally be the scenario here. It's just that my palette is not good quality. It's not usable. And I wouldn't think to reach for this particular one for some of the really, really pretty silver shimmers in here. Even this one in the corner, this black shimmer looked really nice. Just overall, no. No. That's definitely like the kind of quality from ColourPop that would make me go, I probably am just not gonna buy their palettes anymore. Not even for the price point. It's not worth it for me. Let's move on to number 18. This was another little disappointing one. This is a little quad from Charlotte. She hasn't released quad in like a long time, so this was her first one that she put out. It's the Queen of Luck palette. I also did a dedicated video on this. Just disappointing in the formula. This retails for $55 for one little quad with 4 shades. And so I wanted to be blown away on every single formula in here. And while there are different formulations in each of these shimmers, some are like toppers, some are a little bit drier than others. They're just so underwhelming overall. The best thing about this palette is this warm toned matte shade. Super pigmented, really creamy, easy to blend out. It's literally the best thing about this $55 thing. This is, again, another situation for me when I test a palette from a brand for the first time. Not that that was my first time testing ColourPop, but it was my first time testing Charlotte. This is not something that I would probably repurchase. There's so many other formulas on the market that are just better than this. And I was so underwhelmed, just immensely underwhelmed. One of these is like super piecey, translucent. Yeah, just not my thing. I don't think the quality is really there. And for $55 and Charlotte's access to decently formulated shimmers, and the fact that I know there are other luxury brands out there that do really fun shimmers, they don't all have to come from indie brands. I know luxury brands can do it. I was disappointed in that. The next one that I have, I'm still disappointed. Like, we're still in the disappointed territory here. This was from MAC's Valentine's collection this year. This is the Lovestruck Luck palette. I loved the connecting color last year. They were ranked some of my highest palettes that I tried in all of 2023, which might seem silly to you guys because there are so many good indie brand shadows out there, even ones that I tried, but there was just something so approachable about MAC's formula. The shimmers were very everyday and very light. The mattes were exactly how they should be for something that's easily blendable, still buildable. This one just wasn't it for me. This has one matte in here, which is fine. It's okay. It's a nice matte to pair with every one of those shimmers, so I don't dislike the shade of the matte in here or the fact that there's just one. But I had another hard panning issue. The shimmer right here came completely hard panned. The shimmers in here are just not as good as their connecting color ones. The matte here wasn't as good as the creamy mattes in the other connecting color series. Yeah, that's it. Just very underwhelmed with the performance of this. And these are not cheap either, so there you go. The next two I have are actually from the same launch. More disappointments for me. This one is the neutral brown from the Creamy Obsessions palette launch from Huda Beauty. I actually thought I was going to enjoy the more warm toned one more. The reason I didn't is because some of these shimmers, again, are super piecey. They're just not as good as her other formulation, I think, in some of her other palettes. I don't think that these are bad shimmers, but I don't think they're her best. And I wish this lightest one wasn't so piecey and kind of translucent when it gets to the eyes. It just doesn't pack a really big punch. I think these palettes were meant to be more everyday, creamy shadows. I also think that they were put out there because there isn't like a fully cream eyeshadow palette on the market, and so she was trying to be different. And these could have been great, honestly. They were really fun to put on, but they faded in an hour and they creased like crazy. I don't even see myself keeping these either. The black is nice for a liner, like a cream liner, but I have a bunch of gels that perform really well. I thought I would end up enjoying this so much. I would stick it by my makeup for my everyday makeup wear, and I would grab for this all the time because I like a lot of cream and liquid shadows. These just don't have enough tack to them. They just do not stay. They're also not the easiest to blend out either. You do have to like kind of a wash of color, I think. But yeah, they just don't have enough longevity. I have a video on these and I'm doing a wear test, and I think it's like 2 hours in. Not only are they creasing significantly, they're basically almost gone. The next one up is the other one from the Creamy Obsessions. It's the Grayish Creamy Obsessions. I liked this one more just because it was prettier on the eye. It just did more for me. I like these shimmers a little bit better because they're not like that piecey one. They're more like everyday, and they just apply a little bit nicer, a little bit more creamy, as the name implies here. I don't think the longevity was any more than the other one. I just preferred this color story a little bit more. That's it. The next one that I have comes from Menagerie Cosmetics. Now, this is the first time that I'm testing Menagerie Cosmetics. I picked up, I want to say 2 or 3 of their palettes just to test it out. Maybe it was just 2. I do have both of them here. So the first one that I have up is the Killer Purr palette. I love this packaging. I think these palettes are really sturdy. They have a nice mirror in here. I love this color story. The shimmers in here are delectable. The mattes here though are a little tricky. The lighter ones sometimes are a little bit more difficult to blend out, and I had such trouble with this deep shade out here. It overblends like crazy. It sticks to weird places on my eye. I don't know if it's just because I was like using a brush that I've used with other shadows before, but it was very patchy. I was able to build this up the couple of times that I used this shade, but it took me a while. A lot longer than with other shadows of this depth. It's a little bit desaturated, but this whole palette is a little bit lighter and desaturated. And I like that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that the quality here isn't great in the deep shades. I love these shimmers though. They're soft and creamy and they're not textured on the lids and they're incredibly light reflecting. These shimmers are gorgeous. This palette would have gone so much lower had it not been for these shimmers. And this teal one here, I don't think I have anything else like it outside of these Menagerie palettes. It's so beautiful. I kept wearing it over and over because it was so pretty. But yeah, I struggled with the mattes. I don't know what that was about. The next one that I have is from Makeup by Mario. It is the Master Mattes The Neutrals palette. All matte palette. The blendability here is pretty good. The reason it landed where it is, I think for me, is because some of the deeper shades creased on me, especially that black shade in the outer corner. I kept using that in the outer corner and it kept creasing. Black shades on me will crease in the outer corner with my hooded eyes, but the ones that don't are amazing and those get my praise. This black shade definitely creased on me. Also, some of these tones are just a little bit too similar once they get to the eyes. I think we could have seen just a little bit more variety here, but I think the blendability here is really nice and everything plays really well together and you can create depth out of it. The two things that I noted here was that black shade creased on me and then some of the shades are a little bit similar. Now the next one I have up, maybe one you guys haven't heard of before. I picked this up from the Sea Beauty Mall is what I think it's called, and it's from a brand called Sugar Rock. Now you guys, this is an experience. The box that it came in is right here and you open it up and it's got its own little insert for the other box that it came with. And here is the box on the inside. Like, look at that. Stunning, stunning, you guys. Full on experience. And then inside of this box came the palette inside of the bag. Now here is the palette. Oh, it's upside down. It's got like this velvet case. Oh, it's so stunning. It is so freaking stunning. It has a mirror in here. It's called the Extravaganza palette. Primarily purple color story. This is not initially the one that I wanted. They have a more neutral one, but it was totally sold out. I want to say I saw this on Instagram. The reason it's ranked where it is because these mattes are super thin and they overblend like crazy. It's really difficult to build up pigment with these and they do not last the longest. These mattes just are very thin and hard to work with. But the shimmer formula here is stunning. Even though these are kind of a creamier shimmer formula, thicker, more foiled, they're still like super soft on the skin. Like, they're easy to blend out. They lay flat. They're not overly textured. Some of these duochromes are absolute fire. Like this one, it just glides on the skin. I will definitely reach for these for the shimmer formula and I'll probably end up pairing them with other mattes. These mattes are just so difficult to work with. I was building and building and they do not build up very easily. Again, they're very thin and powdery. It's like an experience though. This palette is just so cool for everything that it is. I don't have anything else like this in this kind of packaging in my collection. So fun. It was just fun. It was. The next one that I have, I think, is the second one that I have from Menagerie Cosmetics. It's called the Arthurine, I think is how you pronounce this palette. I liked this one a little bit better. It has actually a very similar vibe to it where it's more muted, more light desaturated shades. The reason that I liked this one better is because the mattes performed better. The two deep shades in the top corners actually perform really well, a lot better than the deeper shade in that other palette. But these are a little bit more creamy, they're a little bit more saturated, pigmented, they don't overblend like that other one does. There's only two shimmers in this palette. Both of these are like a duochrome. Again, the quality of the shimmers is stunning. The reason I just put this one where it is because of it's kind of a lighter color story. It doesn't like inspire me the way that some of the palettes upcoming do, but I think the quality in this one is fine. Okay, moving on. The next one that I have is one of the minis from Natasha Denona. This is the My Mini Dream palette. It's fine. It's good. I actually kept this beside my kind of everyday makeup and I was reaching for the mattes in here because they're like perfect transition shades. And this one right here in Nurture, it actually does, I think, come from the original My Dream palette, but I didn't realize that it has like this kind of taupey base to it. It's not like fully neutral. It almost has like this reddish tinge to it, which is really pretty. I enjoyed using that shade as a transition for so many different eye looks. This is fine. This is a great like little travel palette. These are lighter shimmers, but they perform like great everyday shades Totally nothing wrong with them. They're on the softer side, a little bit of light reflection. A deep shade in the outer corner works pretty well. It's kind of an underwhelming little guy, but I mean, it performs really well. That's kind of the bottom line of this. Now this next stack is definitely where I get excited. Just some more fun kind of color stories here and better formulations. This one was a collaboration with Surya Soto and Gourmand Girls. It's the Warriors Wear Pink palette. I picked up 2 of the Gourmand Girls palettes, but I've only tried this one so far. I like this color story. I'm really into red, pinkish color stories. My everyday shades are very pink or burgundy or green shades. So this has a lot of the colors that I like. There is a fun translucent duochrome over here, which was a nice addition to the palette. The palette goes from really light to very dark. You have depth in this palette. You have transition shades. You have some fun shimmers in here. This blue one is really fun. It's light reflecting. These aren't like duochromes. The only duochrome I think is that white kind of translucent duochrome that shifts pink. These are not my favorite mattes that I've ever dealt with. It's not even my favorite shimmer formula either. I do like the color story though. I like the looks that I was coming up with. I like that there's a black in here because when I see a blue shimmer, like a mid-tone shimmer shade, I need something darker than that mid-tone shimmer shade. So having the black in here was very nice. Overall, the color story I really enjoyed. Again, I just don't think it's my favorite matte and shimmer formula. These shimmers are a little bit piecey. Some of them are just like different formulations. Like this one over here is not piecey. It's a little bit thinner. This one's a little bit powdery, the translucent white shade, and then you've got the 2 chunky ones. It's nice to have variety. I would just say they're not my favorite shimmer formula. And the mattes here, I feel like they change tone just a little bit. They don't look exactly the same when they get to the eyes as they look in the pan, but I think the performance is good. That's what I mean when I say not my favorite mattes, I think is what it is. The next one that I have is also new to me brand, another indie brand. This one is from Terra Moon Cosmetics. It's the Space Chemistry palette. I don't think I liked this palette when I first tried it. Both of these mattes are very similar when they get to the eyes. This one though has like this pinkish color the same way that this one from Natasha and Nurture has. I think they're fine transition shades. It's just there's no depth here. I must have seen that when I purchased the palette, but I didn't realize that these shimmers were going to be so glittery. They're smooth. They're basically just this really intense, really saturated glitter. Not at all what I was expecting. So they're a little bit more difficult to deal with. I feel like I had to always go in with a glitter glue or a glitter primer when playing with these shadows. And even then I was like getting some fallout. So yeah, not exactly what I was expecting with the shimmer formula. This is a companion palette. Those 2 shades for me are just transition shades. I almost always go deeper in the outer corner. So I like it. Again, just not what I was expecting, and it does take a little bit more work for me to get the glitter to stay on the eyes and just not all over my face essentially. The next one I have is a brand new brand to me as well. This is one from Cosmic Brushes, the Muse palette. I had my eye on this palette for a while because it has the tones that I really like, the greens, the burgundies, just a ton of different shimmers. I like this palette overall, but it has a couple of things that like holds me back. It has a similar issue with the Gourmand Girls with the Warriors Wear Pink, where some of the tones come out differently on your eyes. Like if this looks like a brown, this is full burgundy on my eyes, which is nice once I figured it out, because then I could create like, you know, kind of a pinkish burgundy look. That was fabulous. But the first time I used it, I go, oh no, I did not swatch this whole palette out before I tried it. This stains my hands and my eyes burgundy. Some of the shimmer formula here is a little bit underwhelming and not as intense as I would like. They're not all created equal either. Some are creamier than others. This one is just a little bit of a drier formula, but the pink one has more creaminess to it. This white translucent one is a little bit dry in the upper corner as well. I don't know if it's catching back on camera how much drier these are than this one. So sometimes I'm like, look, you have good formula in the shimmers in your palette. How come some of them are different and they're not good? Unless they like that, I don't know. I like it overall. I think it just took me a while to kind of warm up to it because of those couple of things. That some of the shades just didn't pull exactly the same as they looked on the pan. Same thing with this green one. It kind of almost has like a bluish base to it when you get it to the eyes. So now that I've kind of memorized what these shadows pull, I create better looks with it. But it took me a couple of tries to get to know that palette, essentially. Let's move on to another indie brand. This was the Mighty Monster palette in collaboration with Annette from Manette's Makeup Corner. I am pretty familiar with Odin's Eye formulas, but I have to admit they're not always the same. Sometimes the mattes perform better or the shimmers perform better than other palettes or different releases. I think this was one of the good ones. I picked up this one specifically because I watch Annette and I know she's really into eyeshadow. The other two creators that came out with a collaboration along with this one, I don't watch them, so I don't know what their preferences are, but I do know Annette's. And I always think to myself, like, if it's a collaborator that I feel like would go through quality control really well, it's probably a palette that I like. I feel like all of these are pretty consistent in the formula. They're a little bit more chunky of a shimmer formula, but they're all very light reflecting. The mattes are beautiful and buttery and all of that good stuff. It didn't rank higher because the color story for me is not exactly, like, I wouldn't create this for myself, but I could see why Annette would do this. She likes brighter looks. I think some of them are very fun and you have decent variety here, and every one of these shimmers can be paired with any one of these mattes. That makes sense to me. So overall, I thought it was good. I thought it was a good one from Odin's Eye. Are you guys tired of hearing me say like, oh, it's another new to me brand, but I have another new to me brand? I want to say that I have more than one, but I haven't finished testing the other one is probably the case. But I picked up one of the new releases actually from Clarity Cosmetics. This is called the Deadly Rose palette. Very dark color story, but if you guys heard me say, I love reds and pinks, well, burgundies, I guess, and greens. Love, love, love. Love those shades. Love those color stories. They draw me in all the time. I almost always, if I'm looking for a new brand to test, I'm going for a color story that has greens, pinks, maroons. I'm not tired of it yet, but I'm definitely trying to get out of my comfort zone when I'm going to brands' websites and I'm like, okay, which palette am I gonna try first? I'm trying to go for out of the box stuff that I wouldn't have tested before. This one's good. The mattes in here are solid. They're saturated and pigmented. They blend perfectly. I like that you have a lighter shade. If you just kind of wanted to use this, but you just wanted to deepen with one of these colors, you could, or if you needed a transition, you could. I like that you have a shimmer to pair with every one of the mattes. I even think you can do a green and red look. I like it. The only one that's really different is this like pillowy glitter shade out here. I was not expecting it. It's like soft. It's like sand essentially. That's kind of what it feels like. I mean, it is basically all just glitter. I don't even know if I call it like a glitter topper. It has virtually no tack to it. It's kind of surprising that it's even staying in the pan and not like coming out because it's flying everywhere. It feels like a loose glitter. The formula on the rest of the shimmers is so pillowy and like rich, and they're intense. So I'm definitely excited to try more from their line. I really enjoyed this palette. It might be a color story thing for some people because this is just your, you know, standard 9-pan, but to me it's just gorgeous. And the performance was there. The next one that I have is a new release from By Beauty Bay. This is the Reckless Romance palette. You guys have already heard me talk about my color story preference. This just checks all of those burgundy boxes. I just love this. This is just my kind of color story with one fiery shimmer here. I love fiery shimmer shades. Like orange shimmers are beautiful with maroon shadows in my personal opinion. And even like in some of my research, I'm like, what colors look best with blue eyes? And they say like peachy tones look really good with blue eyes. So I think it's true. I love warm tone peachy shades. I love them as shimmer shades with a ton of light reflection. This palette is such good quality. Like, I don't care what it looks like in the pan. It performs better than so many of these ones. Like, By Beauty Bay never disappoints me in their formula. Not in their shimmer formula, not in their matte formula. You can do something neutral with this if you want to. It goes, again, from very light to very dark. It's got the depth. I love the layout. I love everything about this palette. I love it. The next one that I have is also a new release from Adept Cosmetics. This is the Flying Fiddles palette. I love this packaging. Like, sturdy and different for them. It's not like the glossy front faux leather that they've done in a lot of their palettes. This one's just, it's just so pretty and cool, and it feels like great quality. This was their attempt at their first neutral palette. And I think there were some people going, is this actually neutral? I mean, I think it is. I think it's beautiful. I have always liked their matte formula. I've always just been critical of like, you put in 2 mattes, like just leave them out. I don't think that way anymore. I think I felt that way initially when I tested Adept Cosmetics for the first time. Was like, why do you even put mattes in your palettes? Like, you can't pair those mattes with every one of the shimmers. But this one has 4, where usually a lot of their palettes have like 2 or 3. And of course, these are my kind of neutral tones, you know, the burgundies, the pinks, you got a brown, and you have a teal here, which I really like, because what I've been doing a lot lately is, instead of just using any transition shade, I've been taking the deepest shade of my eye look from the outer corner and literally packing on the outer corner and just buffing inwards, whole eye look aside from the shimmer. That's basically what I did today. I did kind of blend out with the lightest shade in the palette, so it was nice to have like a beige shade or kind of a white shade, which this one doesn't have. The formula here in the mattes is still very, very good. Most of these are like duochrome shades, if not like multi-chrome shades. The one in Dahlia in the upper right corner is freaking stunning. It's one of those smooth multi-chromes that's like super fiery. I feel like this is a different formulation for Adept too, because a lot of their shimmers are very, very piecey. This one is a very smooth shimmer formula. There's nothing piecey about any one of these shimmer shades. I have even heard people say that they don't love the Adept Cosmetics formula because they're a chunkier shimmer than some people prefer to put on their eyes. I think this is probably the solution to that because it's a very different formula. I love everything about this, you guys. It's a very easy palette for me, and I'm oftentimes reaching for a burgundy shade for the outer corner. So for me, I really enjoy it. The next one that I have is another new to me brand. I have more palettes from this particular brand, but I think I've only tested this one so far. This was the Vintage Rose palette from Give Me Glow Cosmetics. Wait till you guys see the color story. Bam! Burgundies, greens, pinks. So good. So good. The thing is, when you pick this up, these are way big pans, and this is definitely a high price point, I think, for the fact that you're only getting 8 shades, and I'll never pan these before they go bad. But the best thing is how trusty this freaking thing is. It's my color story in general, my kind of color story, but the mattes are perfect. Like perfect. Depth, blendability, pigmentation, perfect. These shimmers though are stunners. They're full-on stunners. They're gorgeous. They're smooth. They're intense. These are good ass quality shimmers. Period. This little one down in the corner is like more of a sparkly shade too, so it's like a nice little addition that you have. Like the range here, you have a lighter shimmer, you've got a mid-tone shimmer, and kind of 2 deeper shimmers, I would say. This just is a home run for me. If I'm looking for a color story like this, it performs. So easy to create eye looks. Really enjoyed that. So I'm thoroughly excited to test more of the Give Me Glow Cosmetics formula. The #1 palette that I tried in the last 3 months is from a new indie brand called Krypton Cosmetics. This is their very first release. I did do a dedicated video on this as well. So if you guys are interested in seeing like the ones that I've said I've done dedicated videos on, or try-ons of a lot of these palettes, check out my channel if you're interested in seeing how any of them perform. This one made it to the #1 spot fast. Quality is here, color story is here, variety is here. This thing is so good. It goes, again, very light to dark. I did a green orange look with this. Was stunning, freaking stunning. I had one shade come broken on me, but I was able to repress it and it works perfectly. A lot of these shimmers are very, very piecey, so they come pretty pieced and foiled, and then if you like rub them in, they're the kind that eventually will smooth themselves out, and they're beautiful duochromes. And then they have some multi-chromes that are very smooth. The quality on each of them, even if they're different formulations, is beautiful and nice. All of the shimmers are very intense. You have one kind of transition shade. It's called Transition. It's more of like a mustardy leaning transition shade, and it just pairs very well with this color story. They did a good job in thinking about what like the undertone was going to be for that transition shade. It's a primarily like green color story, but you can get a more neutral look out of this. This is the one that I'm wearing on my eyes right now. I started with this one in the outer corner and I buffed it inward. The shimmer that I'm using on my eyes today is this one right here. It's a little bit piecey, but I sprayed my brush, put it on my lid, and there was literally no fallout. And then I swept all over with the shade to kind of like buff that black shade, what is it called? Black hole in the outer corner in just a little bit. Gorgeous. gorgeous. I mean, I've done some really interesting things with this palette and the quality is fantastic, and this black shade does not crease on me. No creasing. I freaking love this thing way more than I thought I was going to. I definitely wasn't going to get it when I saw that it released until I saw the picture of the palette on their website and I was like, oh wait, some of those shimmers look delightful. Oh, I'm also using this one in the inner corner. I forgot about that. Anyway, this is a stunningly fabulous palette. Beautiful multi-chrome faux leather outer corner. I love everything about this palette. I have done some really very different things using that palette. That was it. That was all 20 of my last palettes that I've tried ranked. I hope you guys enjoy. Again, if you guys are interested in seeing try-ons of any of those palettes, please check out my channel. Also, I will be linking all of the palettes in the description box in case you are interested in checking any of them out. If you guys aren't currently subscribed, again, I would love to see you subscribe. I'm going to do this again at the end of Q2, and then I will do a full ranking at the very end of the year like I did last year, and I think the year before, of all of the palettes that I tried for the year. I'm out of here, you guys, and I hope to catch you all in my next video. Bye.